Hey you guys, this is going to be a super quick update. Basically, the cross-examination of of Nishad Singh finished after lunch, and he got a few points in. But what was interesting is actually early on, the defense wanted to ask about the conversation on the balcony when he was asking Sam, about the NAV and how they were going to pay the $13 billion back, and the defense raised the fact that he had said, right after that, then they talked about the days, right before FTX's collapse, and the defense asked about his comment that he'd been suicidal for a few days at that point, and then Nishad corrected, yeah, and also for a few months after. So I don't know if the defense got across what it wanted to, because obviously that wasn't a good comment for them. But anyway, then here's a moment when it sort of felt like, oh, actually maybe they do have one over on Nishad, because, at this point he had kind of been presented, or at least the way he came across was sort of as the conscience of the group, as I mentioned, where he just seemed to over and over again have this really strong sense of what's right and what's wrong. And he was asked about if he purchased a house in Orcas Island, Washington, which hadn't come up before. And he said, yes, he had purchased it in October of 2022. And he had borrowed the $3.7 million to purchase it, and basically, yeah, he closed in late October of 2022, obviously shortly before FTX collapsed. So at this moment, it was sort of like, oh wait, was the person that we thought was this kind of the goody two-shoes of the group, the one who, just so was clearly calling out things as being wrong, was he a grifter as well? But yeah, wait a second, I'll get to that in a moment. But that question was raised. Then the next few things were that it was the defense lawyer kind of wanted to call it inconsistencies with the notes of his discussions with the government back in the winter, or at other points, after he had first come into them and then up until now. But I don't know if you listened to one of the recent Tuesday shows that I did on my podcast, where we talked about why it is that sometimes early on there was a moment where one of the defense tried to bring in notes from one of these discussions that one of the investigators had early on, and make a comparison to what that whoever the witness was against what they had said to the government, their testimony. And the judge at that time had said, "Don't you ever do that again, Mr. Everdell." And I asked the guests about it, and they were like, "Oh, the notes that are taken when the government is meeting, they're not transcripts, and so then the notes could be incorrect." And it's true, if I think of my work that I do as a journalist, if someone's telling me something for the first time, my notes are for sure going to contain a lot of inaccuracies. And so you will know, if you are one of my sources, that I will always ask to record the conversation, because people speak in nuance. I'm not going to pick up the nuance the first time. And if I have a recording, I can always go back. But the point is that a few times the defense tried to be you said this when you were being interviewed earlier, before the trial, and then now during the trial you're saying this or that. And then he would drop the notes and then be like, "Does this jog your memory?" And a few times Nishad was like, it doesn't. And then one of the times he was like, "Oh yes, this does." So it must be that the notes were inaccurate, which is why he didn't remember saying those things, because he probably didn't say those things. So it sort of felt like the defense was trying to go somewhere with their questioning, and they just couldn't get anywhere because the notes that they were using for their questions were inaccurate. So anyway, then basically it went to, but the one time that actually Nishad did remember the questioning was when he had called his purchase of the Orcas Island home egregious and unnecessary. And when he had his memory jogged about it, he said, "Yes, I remember that I said that, and I also agree with that statement that it was egregious, unnecessary, and also selfish." So anyway, okay, so then the redirect happened, and basically the prosecution kind of batted away, if not all, at least most of the main lines of questioning that the defense was going at. So first of all, about the political donations, which, like I said earlier, they had spent kind of a lot of time on. The government said, "Who were you conspiring with those political donations?" And he was like, "SBF and Ryan Salem." And then the judge had to break in and be like, jury, for reasons that don't concern you, SBF is not being charged with, violations of the federal, whatever it is, election, blah, 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 act. And so anyway, but the government was saying, like, basically, like, it's not just that you committed that crime, but also you did it with somebody else. And then he revealed, so through questioning, Nishad revealed that he forfeited the Orcas Island home. And he said, quote, "I bought it at a time I knew was putting myself ahead of customers, and I was ashamed. I wanted to right a wrong, however, small that righting of that wrong would be." And he said that, and then the next thing was the prosecution asked about the relationship between auto deleveraging and the situation that Alameda found itself in, owing all that money to FTX, and Nishad was like, yeah, there's no relationship. And then he was also asked about the roughly $500 million loan that he had taken to exercise his options. And it was basically all on paper, like just to exercise the options, and there was no money that actually went to him. And then, let's see, the last bit is, so the defense had also asked him, like, before, the fall of 2022, had you thought about resigning from FTX and Alameda? And he was like, oh yeah, many times, like in 2018 and 2020, like after bad conversation with Gary or Sam. And this time, the prosecution asked him about that again. And then he said that this time in November 2022, when he thought about resigning, or the fall of 2022, when he thought about resigning, he said it was different. And the reason it was different was because, the previous times just had to do with him and his life, and like, is this the right thing for him, and whatever. And then he said, but that time in the fall of 22, it was different because he, quote, I knew I was getting involved in something, quote, heinously criminal. And then he said the scale of wrongdoing was enormous. So anyway, then we just wrapped up with a really kind of tedious thing that I'm guessing is just establishing jurisdiction for the Southern District of New York, because basically this FBI agent who does cell site analysis, which is like analysis of cell phones just for a number of dates and things, verified that Sam Bankman-Fried's phone was in Manhattan. So it was pretty tedious, but, got a lot of education about how cell towers work and stuff like that. Anyway, that's the update from the newsroom. Talk to you later. Bye.